Hi everyone, this is Michael Merte from the band Evile.
And I'm Philip. I'm also in Evile. I'm just the bass player. I'm just kind of like the guy trying to follow Mike's kick drum, at least trying.
And of course I'm the drummer as for the kick drum, and we just decided, hey, we've been waiting around, we've been auditioning singers, and we thought we need to at least get some content so we can give something to the fans. And we decided, hey, we're both fans of podcasts, and this is probably the best way to do it. We wanted to do a podcast, so here we are.
Yep, and I'm kind of new still to podcasts, but I'm a little bit addicted, mostly to like movie podcasts, especially like the latest news and movies and movie reviews, especially when they do reviews on really horrible, campy movies, almost like the MSTK. MSTK, yeah.
MSTK 3000.
I love that. Love crappy horror movies that are so good that they're bad.
Yeah,
so bad that they're good.
One of my favorite podcasts is the How Did This Get Made?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That's good. That's really, really good.
So we're hoping that you're listening in because you're interested in either the band or, what's this all about with podcasting, and hopefully we give you a little bit of entertainment. The other thing I've always been interested in, we're fans of a lot of things, as you can tell, either movies, we're definitely fans of music, but we're also, the people that question what people do as far as being in bands.
And yes, we have a little bit of nerd in us.
Yeah. And,
But this band, like I said, it's called Evile, Evileannie. Everyone always thinks it's called Evil Annie, but it's not. It's Evile Annie. And the whole thing behind that is because I wanted a word that can be used as one or the other, where it's subjective. Is it evil or is it vile? So it's like a mixture of two words, but all put into one word.
When did you come up with that?
I came up with that right before I actually put guys together in this band, which was, I believe, in 2000, toward the end of 2010.
Okay.
And at first I did pick the word Evil Annie. And then I came up with a bunch of other names. I even thought of, like Demonic Doll or The Doll from Hell. Just crappy names that just didn't fit.
What came first, the idea or the name of the band?
The idea. The idea was actually way older. I came up with the idea way back in 2001. It was back when I was in a band called Xylem. And I was pretty unhappy in that band. We had a female singer, and then I was just going out with my then girlfriend, which turned into my ex-wife and all that stuff. And she was a singer, and she was a good-looking redhead. And after my show with Hex, we all hung out in this hotel, and then she was just sitting on the corner, and she had her hair all fluffed up and stuff like that, just sitting there. And I looked at her, and she looked like a doll, and I was thinking, oh my god! And it just came to me, I would love to get this chick, put her up on a stage with a Raggedy Ann doll or something like that, and just make her look all horror-like, make her look dead, evil, and ugly. And that's when the whole thing came up to me. And then plus, just thinking about Alice Cooper and Gore and all those other theatrical bands. And then from there, it just started in me. The wheels started turning, and slowly, I started writing a manifesto about the whole thing. But she was the initial one. Just the way she looked gave me the whole idea of starting a theatrical band that's a little bit bigger than life. And then from there, I shelved it. At first, I was actually going to put it together, but then Xylem broke up, and I started another band called Hex, and none of those guys were into it. None of them.
And what style of music were you all playing at that time?
That was... It's hard to describe. It's almost a little bit a mix between like Pat Benatar and Blondie.
Okay.
And we had some keyboards in it. There's a little bit of element that I put in that was a little atmospheric, but it wasn't much. And I slowly tried to get those guys to let's do something theatrical, and they're like, no, we don't want anything of that. They just wanted to stick to the rock and roll metal part, and then with
a new wave kind of feel.
A little bit of a new wave, and she was an excellent singer because my ex-wife, that was her first start. It was in that band called Hex, And the whole time I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, this is something I gotta try. But it just never panned out because I was going against the grain with those guys. They just did not see the vision that I had.
And as far as the band went, you guys were dressed up in what, any kind of uniform, or just whatever you decided was rock clothes at the time?
Yeah, because this was like 2002, 2000, and we got some really good gigs. And if you look back at some of those little videos, you can see there's small little elements of Evile Annie in it that I originally wanted for this band that's created now. And then it was almost like an experiment that I used back then, but it never really developed the way I really wanted, because those guys, it was like pulling teeth.
Right. Now with Evile Annie, we use props. Yes. We wear makeup. We all kind of look uniform, with the exception of our singer, who's the voice of the doll.
Yes, she is the voice, because the doll spirit is not only just contained in the doll itself, but also talks in the mind of the singer. And the singer...
And we're hoping telepathy, right?
Yeah.
or she is the doll using our singer as like a megaphone.
Exactly. Exactly, because the sound of the doll and the way it sounds, only our singer can decipher of what Annie really says. And what she says to our singer is all in her head, but it's also subjective to the listener, because it says, is she really just crazy thinking about this stuff, or is it real? So it's subjective if the doll really does exist or not, the spirit of the doll.
Right.
It's kind of like watching a movie where at the end, is he really dead or is he not dead?
Right.
It's subjective. It's based on how you perceive.
Or when I joined the band, I kind of took it as the same idea of a cult leader like David Koresh, where, he's saying I'm the voice of God, and everyone believes it. And it's like that cult mentality.
Yes. With
the band, that we're all just, hey, we're playing for you. This is it, and we worship the doll.
Yes, David Koresh is pretty close, but I mostly associate with Jim Jones. We're all
drinking Kool-Aid then.
Exactly. Like, for instance, the doll would represent God.
Okay.
Okay.
Or whatever our manifest of a deity is.
Yes. Yeah. Would represent God. Our singer would represent like a prophet.
Right.
The singer would be like Jesus, the one that spreads the word. Okay. The musicians, us, would represent like the apostles.
Right.
The apostles, at Jesus' table, the main gratuitous followers, mindless followers.
Right.
And then everybody else, the crowd, would represent the ones that, are not quite there yet, just the onlookers, the followers. But in our eyes, they're all, in Christianity, they would be going to hell, but unless they start to follow.
Okay. So we're not exactly being taught by some demonic possession. It's kind of like we're all convinced that we have to do this for our betterment of our society.
Exactly, because we don't know any better.
Right.
And because we don't know any better, we just follow, like you said, the whole Kool-Aid thing, which is Kool-Aid that's referring to the whole Jim Jones thing.
Yeah. If our audiences don't know, back in the 70s, there used to be this cult that was trying to make a perfect utopian society outside of Mexico, and it was led by this guy named Jim Jones, who claimed that he was the second coming, and everyone really wanted to be in this utopian society where all these hippies got together and made this great thing. But as things started falling apart, he made sure that people wouldn't leave, to the point to where he killed all his members and people that were reporting. Like, he had some reporters and stuff that he actually shot and killed.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember that at the airport.
And the last thing that all the members did was drink poisonous Kool-Aid.
Yeah, because they were just mindless followers, and that's kind of like what we represent. You can also, if you're a Star Trek fan, I'm not sure, some people are, some people think it's hokey crap.
Warning, nerd content.
Yeah, here's the nerd content. It's kind of like we're like the Borg. We had like a one mindset, and all we think about is a doll, because the main center point of this band is about the doll. The doll, and that's Annie, and everything surrounds that doll.
Right, but I think it also goes into, if you ever do any kind of psychology of cults, is people stop thinking for themselves. They start the idea of faith turns into complete trust and almost a hypnotic spell, and like you hear Stockholm syndrome, where all of a sudden you go, oh, this is my family. This is everything this person says has to be true.
That's where they start relating to their to the person that has captured them. They start being sympathetic.
Right.
Oh, we're totally into that Stockholm syndrome. At least our members are completely into that as well. I guess that'd be a pretty good example.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of helps out. When you're listening to our music, why it doesn't always focus on every part of the doll or anything like that. It's really we're kind of talking about society, but in the same token, we're spreading a gospel.
Exactly, and that's why I don't consider we've done some covers, but we're not considered a cover band, nor are we a tribute band. Sometimes I'll say we're a horror tribute band, but I'll just use that as a mechanism to get gigs with other bigger tribute bands. But I pretty much label us as a worship band,
right?
And we worship this doll.
But not a worship band like DC Talk or any of those bands. We're very much, we have a story from start to finish, and it's almost like a musical in a sense, or a rock opera where everything kind of connects together. And when we do covers, we definitely tie it together with all of our music, so it flows.
And plus, we also do it in our own little vein. We don't do it exactly like the original. We put a little bit of us in it.
Right.
And then when we do our shows, another thing that really, I believe, separates us from other bands is when we start the show, from the very start to the very ending, there's always something going on. We have no dead spots, no dead air in our songs.
No, let's expand a little bit about that. What do you mean by dead spots, dead air? We're talking about the time in between song one to song two.
Yes, and that's why I refer to people. We're not a stop and play band. Stop and play is where you play a song, you stop, there's dead air, and then everyone says, "Okay, next song is." They play the song, complete, and then they stop. And then the guys kind of like shuffle around talking to each other. Then they play the next song. So it's one thing. It's one song after another where there's just dead air in between songs with nothing going on. But with our show, we play background tracks between each song. So it's like the show it doesn't stop. Just like a stage play never stops. Except sometimes they have intermissions. We have none because we only have a certain amount of time.
Right.
We fill up every little gap of time that's allowed for us on stage.
And we're really trying to do that for you, the audience.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you're entertained. You got your entire bang for your buck. If we're playing 45 minutes, there's 45 minutes of music.
Exactly. And because sometimes when an audience member, when they're just not into a band, they almost, like as soon as they hear that dead end spot, they want to go straight to the bar. Or they want to go straight to the bathroom. But with us, because we don't stop, I don't want to give them any time to breathe. I want them to stay with us the whole time. And I think sometimes it's the psychological makeup of people, because when you have people that show up to your shows, I should say the ones that are not your friends, I'm talking about the ones that are there seeing you for the first time.
Right.
They got very short attention spans. They want to be entertained, and they want to be entertained now. And that's why the second song is just as important as that first song. Because if you don't have them by the second song, you're pretty much dead. They're not going to give you a second chance. And that's why we don't stop. We're constantly either playing one song after another nonstop, or if we do stop the actual music, we actually start a soundtrack before the song is even over. And then we play the next song right before that soundtrack is even over. So it's a constant flow that you get. The only person that I know that even comes close to do this is the Ramones.
Okay.
Because remember, they just do 1, 2, 3, 4, next song.
Next song.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, next song. I like that. I'm not sure how you thought about that.
I've never thought about it. I mean, the thing as an audience member, the thing that I notice is when you go to especially bigger shows where there's the band that you want to see, and you could tell that they're not really changing guitars or tuning or anything like that. They just want to have some sort of audience response, candor, and sometimes it goes really well because they're a really popular band, and sometimes it just goes like dead. Like everyone is heckling the band, or
when they're telling crummy the worst jokes,
right?
Because they have no concept of ad-libbing.
Right.
And I've been to so many shows, especially some of the local shows, where I'm sitting there and I'm squirming in my seat. Because after the song's over, they're over there chit-chatting with each other on stage, and they're all giving each other high fives, and they're just hanging. There's almost no sense of organization in the band. You're basically watching a train wreck where they have this mentality of, oh, let's just go up there and see what happens.
And do you think that people just have always accepted that as the norm, and they don't think about it, or because I know bands weren't always like that. If you go back to the 50s and the 60s, it was definitely everything was canned, everything was rehearsed. All the musicians looked like they were in a form of uniform, be it like white, suits or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like old R&B bands, especially, but country western for a really long time, everyone wore like 3-piece suits and such.
Oh yeah, you're right, exactly. They're uniform. Sometimes they wear the blazers all together, and
and then I know there was a kind of a breakage around the 60s where it was kind of like, hey, we don't want to be conformists, we all want to be individuals.
Oh yeah.
And for that time it was good, but I think it turned into, what you and I as fans see, is it's turned into laziness.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just like, hey, we're just here. The music's going to speak for itself.
Yes.
Hopefully the audience responds. If not, whatever.
Yeah, because for me as a musician, I see right through it when they're up there, and I can just tell that when these guys went to rehearsal, they didn't have any kind of plan. They had no plan at all, and if they did, it was probably at the last minute. It's that whole thing of, oh, let's just go up there and jam,
Well, being in bands in the past, the thing that used to happen to me would be, someone would turn around and be like, hey, what song are we on?
Yes! Yeah, that happened to me a couple of times, where we had no idea what our set list was because no one took the time or effort to write down a set list. So I was about to go on. It was back when I was in an Alice Cooper tribute band, and we played in Long Beach on 7th Street. I forgot the name of it, some dump. And we were on in 10 minutes, and my drummer comes up to me and says, hey, what's the set list? And I'm like, I don't know, I thought you had it. So here I am scrounging around for a pencil, and I had to write it myself and give it to everybody. And that's a perfect example of just being disorganized. All you think about is drinking and chicks, and you don't even think of the small little logistics that you have to have.
Well, that leads me to the next question. What made you decide to become a musician?
Oh my God, this goes all the way back to when I was in high school. Oh man, I think I was a sophomore, and I was throughout my childhood, I'd just be listening to records, listening to Kiss with the tennis racket,
yeah.
Or the baseball bat.
But as a sophomore in high school, you had a tennis racket, or is this earlier than that?
But I finally decided to capitalize it when I was a sophomore in high school, and that's when I got drum lessons. I remember it was La Habra Music. I went and I got drum lessons. I took those just long enough so I could learn on my own. From there, I became a drummer for about 13 years. And then from there, I became a bass player. I've been doing that for about another 13 years. Oh my God, I'm showing my age here.
No, it's...
And then that's pretty much how and then I just got deep into it. Of just, everything to me was like playing. Especially when I was... later in high school, like around 18, 19, where, you have the rock star dreams.
Right.
And all you thought about was just, let's get some chicks, man. And I did that. And, I would play gigs. And
so you got chicks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's not bad stories. But, they didn't care about me, and I didn't care about them. And you're still a teenager. And plus, at 19 and 20, I still had the mentality of a 16-year-old anyway. And, I did that for many, many years. And then once I started turning like 30, 35, when I got married, all of a sudden I didn't care about that. Because when you get that age, you realize if you haven't made it by at least 30, it's over with.
Right.
As far as making it huge.
Right. As far as what people consider the rock star purposeful age of
exactly because it's a young man's thing with signing and people with with big labels.
But we live in a different world. When you and I first started, I mean, like the reason I got into, I started at a pretty early age in the music. I was about 3 when I was banging stuff around, hoping I could be a drummer, and it was actually Tupperware canisters, like the things that you put. One was for flour, one for sugar, whatever. I turned those upside down. That was my Eric Carr kit.
Eric Carr. That was one of my influences.
I was a big fan of Kiss, and and my dad also introduced me to a lot of different eclectic music. I used to listen to George Benson and Billy Joel, and just listening to all kinds of different music, and just air drumming as a kid. But when I was trying to convince my parents at a young age, hey, I should be a drummer, they're like, well, you should learn the rudiments, become a piano player. Once you learn piano, then you can have whatever instrument you want.
But what was the turning point? Was it something that you saw or something that you heard where you said, that's it, I want a drum kit?
Well, mine definitely was a Motley Crue rockumentary. Right when Dr. Feelgood came out, there was the point of my life where my musical taste really changed, and it became more harder, edgier, and I kind of went, yeah, that person lives my life. Tommy Lee was talking about how his parents wouldn't get him a guitar. They got him an accordion, and he had to learn piano, and he still wanted to do, and so he tried to do things to make himself sound cool. So he plugged his accordion into a guitar amp and tried to make it sound like a guitar. And I was like, yeah, I've done that with a piano. I try to do everything. But you can never make a piano sound metal. You can hit the sustain pedal for only so long. And it really came down to, I had an opportunity. The opportunity was I was turning 16, and my parents were going to get me a car or drums, and I told my parents, hey, a car is inevitable. Get me a drum set.
Was that a trick?
No, it was a mind trick, that's for sure. I knew deep down that someday I'll get a car, but I knew this was the only shot that I can get a drum set, and I knew that was kind of the way of convincing my parents, hey, it's cheaper to get me a drum set.
Yeah, I pissed off a lot of my neighbors. My God. Having a drum set with neighbors that are close to you, you get the dirtiest looks when you go outside. You're mowing the lawn.
Where did you practice?
I practiced in my room.
In your room, okay.
It was right next to the window, and then the neighbor's right there. And
so even with the windows closed and everything like that, it bled through, right?
Oh, God, yeah. It was like thinner than cardboard.
Yeah, well, there was always that deep down narcissist in me. Even though if I closed my windows and closed the doors and everything like that, I'd kill a lot of the sound. I still loved playing like in the garage, or we had like an area that should have been for a gazebo. It was just an open space, and we called that the stage.
Sometimes I'd play knowing that they're listening.
Yeah.
And I try not to fuck up.
Right.
I know they're listening.
Yeah. Well, I would always play to CD, so I'd bring in a stereo speaker right next to my drum set and blast it.
I know. And then
almost to clipping,
And then when I screwed up, I'm like, I didn't mean that. Let me try again.
But I had a handful of neighbors that told me, like, when you set up that drum set, oh man, we were like, great, there goes the neighborhood. But within about 2 weeks, they started saying, hey, he's starting to sound better. He's getting better. And the summer of when I was 16 was the summer I locked myself in the room to learn drums. I just from morning to night, anytime I had free, because my parents were both working, I just played the entire morning until they came home, and that was when I had to stop. And I truly think that's where I learned my chops without ever having lessons.
And what do you think of that old joke when referring to drummers, where they say, what do you call a guy hanging out with a bunch of musicians? And you know the punchline of that.
Yeah, the drummer.
Yeah, what do you think of that? How people don't perceive drummers as musicians now, just a bunch of guys hitting a bunch of pots and pans.
Well, I mean, there's some truth to it, because I think, we both play instruments that are the easiest to learn, but they're the hardest to master.
Yeah.
Guitar, it takes a learning curve to learn it. When you get it, you start realizing, oh, there's some ease of use to this instrument, and I could play rhythm really quick. But then when it comes to soloing, it's a different thing. I think drumming is definitely, you get some basic rudiments, but when someone says, well, I can only play 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can't play any other time signatures or
drum speak.
The thing that I learned at a pretty young age is I had a pretty quick foot. I wanted to play double bass. I couldn't afford double bass, so my right foot became my double bass pedal, and I tried to get it as fast as possible.
Yeah, every single drummer I know, including myself, their first drum kit is always a piece of shit. Every single one, because they always start off, with.
Well, the age old. Yeah, starter kit, which is
straight out of Walmart,
which
Target.
You could tell it like the actual kit itself are thin shells. They probably molded out of just cheap plastic.
It comes with its own drumsticks.
But I knew something about wood. I grew up as a skateboarder, so I kind of knew the different plies and stuff like that. So I actually went looking for a drum set that had wood, and at that time wood was cheap. So no one really wanted to buy wood kits. Everyone wanted to get the Thomas Superstar Special, which was an entire plastic kit, or Remo also had one because Vinny Paul from Pantera was playing that Remo kit that was just all plastic, and it looked cool because it was all black and everything, and everyone just wanted those kits.
It's almost equivalent to like guitarists when it's some kid and. And the kid's just bugging the hell out of their parents. So what does the parents do? They just give them some piece of crap guitar, and it's got like the amp is actually connected to the guitar. So it's like a little speaker. You seen those?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a long time. In today's thing, that would be like a Fender Squire that you get at Costco for $130. But
kind of like that old Brady Bunch episode where Greg's got the Johnny Bravo episode where he actually has an old wooden amplifier hoisted around his shoulder.
Right.
And it looks like an old radio, like from the 1950s. And he's singing, and that was like the amplifier for the time, like a practice amp.
Yeah.
And you see, it looks like this little wind-up toy. And then it just shows you like the comparisons between way back then and today's technology.
Oh, today you don't even need a guitar. I could play on my iPhone and use the virtual guitar.
Exactly. Oh my God. Well, that's cool. I mean, what do you call it? So you don't buy into that drummers are not musicians as comparative to like.
I just think it's like anything. There's a stereotype. There's always going to be someone in the band that someone's going to think is a flake. In most of my cases, it's been singers. Once in a while, it's the rhythm guitar player that turns into the bass player because he just wants to be hanging out with these guys, and you literally have to explain to him the tabs.
Oh yeah. Because one thing that you and I are so well aware of is that musicians are some of the flakiest people on the planet.
Well, especially as you get older.
Oh yeah. I mean, no matter what they say, you cannot ever take it at face value as far as being reliable.
When you're younger and you're living in your parents' house and you pretty much could do whatever you want, you could spend all the time in the world dreaming about being a rock star and playing together in a band. When you get older, it's just harder to get 5 people to sit in the same room at the same time.
Oh, I know, because a lot of them are set in their ways.
Or working. I mean, there comes a point where you got to like kill that dream of being a rock star, but then deep down inside, you got that artist that just keeps saying, you got to create, you got to do something.
Yeah, and especially when they have kids and they bring their kid over, and sometimes that gets in the way. Like, God, especially if the kid's like a total Dennis the Menace. We had trouble with that.
Well, the worst thing I've ever seen is parents that have their kids live vicariously through them. It's like I didn't make it as a rock star, but I got this new generation, and they're going to be the next Hanson boys or
because they get an instrument, and they just throw it at them and say, "Learn this," and the kid's like, "Oh, but I just want to play outside," and they won't give them a choice. Instead, they just want to force it upon them, just like those. Baby beauty contest. Yeah, they shove them on stage, whether they like it or not.
Well, when I was in high school, I was usually the main band that played, but we had another band that would play along with us, and they were a Rush cover band. They called themselves Prime Mover, and it was a brother team. The brother played drums. The other brother was keyboard. Essentially Geddy Lee, keyboard and bass pedals. He'd play all the bass lines with his keyboard. And then they had this other guitar player that was much older than them, like, you know, in his mid-20s. For high school, that was really weird.
Yeah.
But what I learned was the dad was the driving force. When the boys turned of age and they were kind of interested in being in music, he was like, you guys are going to learn this. And he was a taskmaster. Made sure, I mean, he was pissed off if they made a wrong note, and this is high school.
Yeah, because they're like, you're going to be a chip off the block, old block? What's it, chip off the old block, whether you like it or not?
Yeah. And, you know.
Make me proud, damn it.
And lo and behold, when they got old enough, they stopped being musicians. You know, it's just like the dad couldn't have done a worse job of raising their kids that way.
The same thing goes with sports.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, things forced upon kids that they're not interested in.
Well, sometimes it's different. I mean, I know, like, when I was growing up, you get distracted really easily, or you get disillusioned because you go, oh, I'm really good here, and then you realize, oh, I'm not that good out there. I'm kind of done, and then your parents are like, wait, we spent all this money on you to learn how to do this stuff, and now you're going to change it. So sometimes I can understand where, you know, some parents are not so much on their kid, but, you know, trying to be super supportive.
And also, I noticed a couple of things of what makes a musician. A lot of people that I've talked to, especially when they're really, really young, it's a lot of them are like failed jocks. You know, in other words, they'll try their hand at sports, right? They're in high school and they suck. They can't hit a ball, they can't catch a football, they can't do anything. So what they do is they just learn an instrument, and it turns out they mastered it.
Right.
So they would try their hand at sports because that was the thing, everyone's cool doing that, and they would fail. So they would go into something else. They have more of a creative spot in their soul instead of the sports gene.
But
or some of them will do it out of rebellion, like I did.
Yeah, well, I think that was some form of rebellion, but I also wanted some form of acceptance too. That was my reasoning. Wasn't so much like I'm going to be the brooding drummer. I was nervous about being in front of people, and being behind the drum set kind of gave me that sense of power. As I got older, I realized, oh, I really do have power back here. Because I could screw up the entire song if I drop a drumstick, and everyone turns around and goes, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah, and then I'm not sure about you, but you know, it was different back then, and it was a form of rebellion for me because what I would do is I would buy an album. Well, back then it'd be cassettes or records. I would buy the one that I know would piss off my parents the most.
I never had that. I was my parents never really paid too much attention to what my viewing or what my listening was. So I in a lot of ways, I realized I had relatively free, cool parents.
Yeah, because mine were a little more straight-laced, and you know, they didn't like it at all, but they didn't censor me for it. But I still wanted to piss them off. I remember when I first bought my first Wasp album, it was like Inside the Electric Circus. I looked at that cover, I'm like, oh, this will really piss them off. So I'd walk in there just holding it so they can see it, and they're like, oh, like gasping. I'm like, oh, I must be doing I'm doing my job, yeah. Yeah,
where my repression came from, or oppression came from, was going to my high school. We had a very strict dress code. We couldn't grow our hair long.
Yeah.
Everyone had to wear certain clothes, and everyone, all the teachers were very square as far as, you know, studious. And when I was in 7th grade, I had a teacher, Paul Dubé.
Still remember his name.
And you know, we fast forward, he gets fired because he's teaching religion in school. But one of the first things he said when we got into his class, and he was a great teacher, he was open-minded, but he was actually one of the people that got me to listen to the music that he was trying to block. He was like, you know, the first day we got there was a wall behind him. It's like, that's a wall for everyone. Bring whatever poster you want that you like and put it up there. But I don't want to see any of that devil music like Motley Crue.
You know, those little guys, they never get it right. I don't want to see any of that Motley Crue.
Yeah, or that Ozzy Osbourne with an E.
Yeah, but I don't want to see any Metallica.
Yeah.
They always get it wrong, you know, because they don't know it. They don't know it.
And you know, that is a real prime age to be a little bit angsty, where you're questioning authority. And I know that's when I started going, what is this other band, that are out there? And I started, at that time when MTV was playing videos, I started watching other things. Before then, I think I was watching MTV just as any pop song was on there. I mean, I remember I got a Fine Young Cannibals tape in 7th grade.
Oh, yeah, I remember that guy's voice. Oh, Jesus Christ. That was when MTV actually played videos.
Yeah, and they actually had a pretty interesting, programming set where as the night grew, the music got darker. And so I remember I would try to stay up to watch Saturday Night Live and at the same time flip to Headbangers Ball.
Oh, that was with Ricky Rackman.
Ricky Rackman, yeah.
Ricky Rackman. Speaking of used cars, I saw that guy, I don't know, less than a year ago over in Huntington Beach.
All right.
And he sells Volkswagens on the corner of Beach Boulevard and Talbot or something like that.
Yeah, so Ricky Rackman, at Ricky Rackman is his Twitter, so.
He went from Headbangers Ball to...
Well, didn't he own, the Cat House? I mean, he was, one of the reasons why Guns N' Roses got famous.
Yeah, now he's falling from grace being some shark on a Volkswagen lot.
Yeah, but, I mean, like any of those rock guys from the 80s, they're all in the race cars and stuff like that, so Volkswagen suck.
Yeah, selling Jettas to soccer moms.
When I was growing up, I couldn't get enough of whatever band I was into. I always watched the... when MTV used to do rockumentaries, when they would do the background or any kind of, behind the scenes with the band recording. I mean, I was so interested in the recording concept.
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you didn't have the internet or any real means of figuring out how to do anything, you just went, oh, I got this tape recorder. What can I do with that? And you try to watch, oh, okay, so if I get a record contract, which was the first thing we all thought of, what studios do we want to record? I mean, everything seemed like it was so hard to grasp. It was like the ring was so high to get. And today with digital media, it's like, wow, I could do an album in my apartment.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
So, in conclusion,
okay. That's going to get edited.
in this segment, if someone comes up to you, some bright-eyed kid, and says, I want to be a musician, do you say, yeah, go for it. Let me show you how you do it. Or do you say, look, kid, you don't want to be doing this. What do you say if someone comes up to you and say, hey, I want to be a musician. What do I do? Should I?
Oh, I'm always proactive. I mean, the joke that I have is like you were talking about drummers. The first thing I tell them is don't be a drummer unless your parents are extremely rich and they'll buy you the best materials, because the drumming concept is one of the most expensive instruments out there. I mean, we'll start off with just drum heads. They start about $20 to $50 each. You buy it. And like, say for instance, you get a small kit that's like 3 or 4 pieces. There's 2 drum heads on each one, so that's about $100 a shell, regardless of the shell you got. Hi-hats are about $400.
Exactly.
The hardware to hold the hi-hat is expensive. Every time you kill a drumstick, it's at least $7. I'd say learn a guitar, learn bass.
Yeah.
The thing I always say is, if you're not a good singer but you want to be a musician, be a bass player, because you become a commodity.
Oh yeah.
It's a really boring looking instrument, but if you're really good at it, everyone calls you.
Yeah, that's true, especially in this area. As for me, if some bright-eyed kid comes to me and say, hey, I want to be a musician, I would actually say yes. I would say yes, but I would actually tell them a lot of the pros and cons. I would say yes, but it takes a commitment, and if you're not willing to commit, don't do it. Simple as that. You have to have heart, and it takes big commitment to that instrument. And if they're just going to do half-ass, or sometimes, it's just a phase. Because I even tell them, I'll say, are you sure, is this just a phase? Or I would tell them, do you see yourself in 10 years still playing this thing? Because you have to put a lot of time and effort into it. So it's almost like I discourage them by telling them the reality of it, and then from there they make their own decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes back to the question. Did you get into music because of music, or did you get into music because the guy looked cool doing it?
the guy that looked cool doing it.
Yeah, see,
because I did not know what I was in for.
I got into it because of the music, so I never really looked at the. I mean, growing up in the glam rock era, you just saw, oh well, I can fix everything with makeup.
Okay. It started off because I was young and I was dumb. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just in a life of wanting instant gratification. And I just didn't look at all the little things. I just wanted to be on stage and, the girls, the booze. That's all I cared about. But then later I changed. I grew up. It turned into the music. It absolutely turned into the music. So that's what I would tell anyone who wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, I would definitely ask them, do you want to look cool or do you want to be cool?
Yeah, that's very... Okay, Mike.
Yo.
Next thing I wanted to talk to you about was with our band, Evile Annie, was influences that maybe you want to create or start this band with the other guys. And just recently I did an interview with an online magazine. It's called Brain Gel.
Okay.
And they gave me the standard questions like, who are your influences, like that. And I noticed when I hear a lot of bands talk about influence, they give the same dead answers. It's like Slayer, Metallica, Alice Cooper,
right.
Marilyn Manson, and it depends on how old they are.
Depending on what the types of bands are.
Yeah, it's just always the same.
But if it's your music, what music do you sound like? And
exactly.
Why did you choose that?
And then so the reader can relate, saying, oh, I know that too. And then next thing you know, oh, yeah, cool, me too.
Right.
I didn't want to give those answers because in reality, those really had very little to do with making or Evile Annie with all the guys. Instead, my main influence was actually movies.
Huh.
Movies and documentaries about paranormal things. Believe it or not, Tron. Remember Tron?
Oh, I love Tron.
The Disney movie.
I grew up with Tron.
And even when it comes to some of our later visuals, I even like Tron Legacy. I must be one of the 5.
Oh, well, that make me number 6 because I liked it. I understood what they were trying to do with it. So.
Me too.
I really got into it.
Yeah, I think that it's a very underrated movie.
Well, but also it was a cult movie that actually tried to go mainstream, and the people that didn't like it weren't the people that knew the movie from the beginning.
Yeah, and if you look closely, it's also obvious the way they glow.
Right.
They use that substance called L-wire, or is it L-wire?
Was that L-wire? Okay.
Yeah, L-wire.
I didn't really because the original Tron was like backwards lighting.
Yeah. Well, I guess
you just like that glowing effect that the L-wire gives.
Exactly. So what L-wire is like a wire that's connected to an inverter, and it's like glowing
More
wire.
nerd talk.
And it cuts through just about anything when you turn off the lights.
Right.
And that's why we put that in our stage show. We wrap it around props. We put it around the drums, and it really sticks out as something different as far as lighting is concerned. But anyway, like I said, it was mostly, a lot of stuff that I grew up with, like we were talking about earlier about the Twilight Zone.
Uh-huh.
Not the ones, the later ones, like the 80s and the 90s.
But like the original black and white, Rod Serling.
The original with Rod Serling, the one that you always catch on the, what's it called? Where they play like 50 of them in a row during...
the marathons?
The marathons,
on Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah, and one of the ones that really stood out was... the one with Telly Savalas, the Talkie Tino, I think it's called Living Doll.
Right.
And I just recently found out the voice of Talkie Tina, of that doll. You know who that was?
No.
It was June Foray.
Oh, okay.
I saw an interview where she talked about where she went in some studio and she just said the words.
And for other audiences, who's June Foray?
Oh, June Foray, she is like one of an icon that went all the way back into the late 40s, late 50s with the Warner Brothers cartoons. She did the witch, the witch that was always after Bugs Bunny.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And
so she's a pretty big voiceover artist.
she did Granny.
Right.
She did Granny. She did
so all the Looney Tunes voices.
all the Looney Tunes voices that required a female.
Right.
And also she did Rocky and Bullwinkle. Cool. And just about, if you just was it IMDb here?
Yeah.
You'll see a long laundry list of just about everything she's done. I think she's like in her 90s now.
Huh.
But she did the voice of Taki Tina. The same voice as, I think it's Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle. And she also did Natasha.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And when I saw that episode, I saw it when I was a kid. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah. That kind of stuff always scared me. Like that was the first time I ever really understood that there might be life in inanimate objects.
Yes, and that influenced me because that doll is so innocent looking.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea of innocence going bad.
Now, growing up, did you have like stuffed animals or anything around you that may have also influenced that? Or
well, mostly when I turn off the lights.
Right.
I'll be seeing how they look real nice and fuzzy and sweet when you turn the lights on, but then you turn off the lights, your eyes get used to the dark, and you see, and it looks like some demonic thing from hell just looking at you.
My mom was always into those kind of porcelain dolls that when you moved them and lied them down, like their eyes would close, and then you'd move them and their eyes would open, and that mechanism would scare the bejesus out.
Oh yeah, no, it's like that thing's just looking right at you. It's looking through you at the same time.
Yeah, those eyes were always so lifelike, so that so your imagination goes wild.
Yeah, and another thing that just a lot of unorthodox videos that almost have nothing to do with horror movies or metal music. Where I would see, and it would just influence me to do something like this. It's seeing like really, like for instance, there's a music video by a band called Book of Love, and then the title of the song is called Alice Every Day, and I showed you the video.
Yeah.
And
it's a cheesy video, guys, but
oh yeah,
it definitely
it's got some cheese on it.
You can see that the idea is kind of almost the same idea as our Annie, but turned on its head, like in reverse.
Exactly, and that's why I saw the video and I looked at it as, my God, what I can turn this video around and do something with it, because it's so innocent that it's almost creepy in a way. And that's just seeing other things that have absolutely nothing to do with metal music or horror that I would see, and they would influence me to like get the damn thing and turn it upside down and make it even more entertaining.
One of the many things that got me really interested in joining this band was definitely this vision that you had of having, this doll with possession, and we definitely had a story that went around the music with the doll, almost like the kind of horror that I grew up with, which is like the Dario Argento stuff, like Suspiria, or just waking nightmares, but they're not so much gruesome, or you have things following you, just creepy or eerie,
and things that are implied,
right?
Instead of some guy with a bed sheet over his head, all hokey like Scooby-Doo. It's something. It's what you can't see where the creep factor in psychological goes in your head, that it's even worse than seeing some Freddy or.
Well, I mean, I would say that to me, one of the best horror genres out there is the kind of the supernatural serial killer. To me, the best that was ever done was the Halloween series with Michael Myers, where it's just an unstoppable force that would go after everything.
Oh yeah. You're talking about the first one, not the several other ones.
Well, I mean, the main, the original Halloween, the John Carpenter Halloween, definitely is the best. I'm not talking about the Rob Zombie remakes, or anything, even though those were a lot better than others. But here is an image of just, they call it the shape. They never even called him Michael Myers until later on.
That's right. They refer to it as a shape.
And the idea was, it literally is the thing in the shadows. It doesn't have a funny kind of comedic, thing that like Freddy had, where he would make a little quip joke before he killed you or whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like the James Bond thing, when
Yeah.
he says something cool before he kills someone, but Freddy almost does the same thing.
Yeah, and he didn't really have the same rules as like Jason did, where it was like, oh, let's have sex. Oh, you're dead. Even though a couple of characters died that way.
Yeah, and then like another thing that I noticed is how some people have like a fear of clowns.
I'm one of those people.
Oh, great! I'll wear a clown mask next time we do this.
Well, my fear of clown definitely comes from it comes from John Wayne Gacy. Like when I was a kid and heard the story of John Wayne Gacy, and I was like, wait, you're telling me that a person that has a facade of a happy person is really this evil monster on the inside?
Yeah.
So you don't know what they carry on the inside. So that also got me interested in why I wanted to act and why I wanted to become different characters, and that's why I'm Michael Murte in this band, is I take on a persona that's a different character.
And plus, if you look closely, the way he put his makeup on, oh my god! Remember when Gacy he made those paintings of himself,
Right?
With him wearing that clown outfit. He actually wore that clown outfit, I hear, to actual real parties.
Yeah. No, he was a professional clown.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that finding out, like, that's why he was never profiled as a mass murderer.
Yeah, and I think there's been like several movies.
Right.
I think Brian Dennehy played him one time.
Possibly.
Yeah, Brian Dennehy was really good. I actually believe the guy was John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. Well, the kid that I don't know if you ever saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh yeah.
The kid that played Francis played him when they did Gacy recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, people have a fear of clowns. I guess you're one of them. And then the other thing is, a lot of people have a fear of dolls.
Yeah.
Especially like weird looking ones. I know a few people that are terrified of dolls more than clowns, and it's kind of. And I heard them like, hey, that's a little thing to go on. How some people just don't like dolls.
Well, I think it depends on how you grew up and, whatever your psyche is. You can be afraid of anything. It's, I think it all comes down from the fear of the unknown, which is why it's always pretty fun to write about supernatural or why do we dress up for Halloween? Why is it my favorite holiday?
Yeah.
Halloween's my Christmas.
Oh, yeah. and then I was reading about the Twilight episode about the living doll one.
The Twilight Zone episode?
Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
And that was like a real doll. But what they did is they altered it a little bit. And I forgot the name of the doll. And it was one of those dolls that you were talking about where kind of like the eyes like move
Right.
when you move it. And they kind of like follow you. And it looks like that doll is like looking past your soul or something like that. Right. Something about that is just really creepy to me.
So let's go back to Annie. What about the Annie doll that influenced you? Why did you? First of all, you created the Annie doll just for this band.
Yes. It took me months and months to think about what kind of a doll that would be. They have a nice blend of innocence and something that just stares at you and you just get this weird feeling by looking at its face. And when I went to a doll maker it was a professional doll maker named Christy. I just found her by luck. I had to explain to her every little detail about how I expect the doll to look. And that's when we both came to the conclusion that the doll should have a big crack on its face because the doll's supposed to be over 100 years old.
Okay.
And another thing that was really important is having one of the eyes completely blacked out and the other eye just a solid white.
Uh-huh.
And
to give it age or to make it come from a different era?
Mostly a little bit of both, I try to say. But just the whole idea of having, because, having it just both white eyes or both black eyes, I want to have it a little bit of both, so that's why I picked one eye.
Right.
And I want it to have an old style, like Victorian look as far as the dress is concerned. Is real foofy kind of thing.
Right.
The way they used to
really
dress.
elegant.
Yeah, in the Edwardian age.
Yeah.
And of course, having the bow on the head and stuff, because I really wanted the doll to look a cross between innocence and something that is just look completely corrupted by evil.
Right.
And that's where the paranormal starts inside it, because it looked like the doll itself physically was affected by something.
Right.
And then so it took her about almost a month to build the doll, because as she was building it, we were communicating. And then I also wanted her to make a large doll, because she's never built a doll this big, because the doll is exactly 20 inches tall.
Okay.
All she does is like 12 inches.
Oh, okay. So she's already done like action figure size.
Yeah. So she came with this. She finally found one, and there she just got to work on it. And then when she finally showed me the finished project, it was like 99% of what I envisioned in my head. And the first thing in my head when I saw, I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That's Annie. That is exactly what I wanted. And I asked her, I said, is this something you can ever do again? She said no. Because to her, it really was a one-of-a-kind doll.
Right.
And she made it specifically for this band, because I gave her the whole manuscript of the entire band, and she fed off of that, and plus the little intricacies that I wanted on the doll. And she did a great job. And I don't think there's anybody else could have made a doll like that, because it truly is a one-of-a-kind. And then when you go on our Facebook, in our logo, you see the doll itself.
Right.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback of the way that doll looks. Some people just look at it and they were telling me that's like one of the scariest dolls they've ever seen. You know?
Well, the funny thing is, yeah, I'm scared, more afraid of clowns than I am of the dolls, so it doesn't affect me as much.
Yeah, because I always tell people this story where, especially when I first got the doll, I would put it on my little dining room table, I guess if you call that. I'd put it up there, and then I would write songs. I'd look at the doll, and I would just start writing, right? I guess it was just an influence, just looking at that damn thing and how creepy it looks.
Right.
So I left it on the mantle one time. Is it a mantle or my table, whatever? And you can actually see it from my bed. And I tried to go to sleep, and the thing was just sitting there. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of looked over, and in the night, it looked like it was looking at me. And I couldn't sleep.
Right.
I could not sleep at all. I was like, oh my God, is this thing just going to kill me or what? And that's where I got up and I just put it back in the closet.
Or it's like saying, Phil, you got to write more music. I have more music to tell you.
I know. Sometimes people give me a little shit about that. So they actually think
Well, I mean, and now you've put the doll that's on stage with us, and it's one of the creepiest factor because you backlight it, and
yes.
it's in this really nice glass case. And if you ever come and see one of our shows, you'll see the doll. It gets released about halfway through the show.
Yeah, because as part of our show, we don't show the doll at first. We used to show it at the end of the show. You know, almost like to anticipate, like because we keep mentioning this doll over and over throughout the show.
Right.
And then at the end of the show, we finally reveal the doll, and it comes out. But now we built a special case for this doll, and now we reveal it in the middle of the show because we cover it, and then in the middle of the song called "The Lost" or "The Lost of the Field," we uncover it, and then finally people get to see what this doll looks like on stage. And we've gotten a lot of good response. Remember our last show, when we revealed it, people went up to that stage.
Right, and they took pictures, and you know, it turned out to be more popular than a lot of the band was.
Oh, I know. I mean, people kind of like stopped in their tracks just to go up to see what the hell is this thing. And it was good response, and I really liked that. I'm glad it worked because it was almost like an experiment. When I put that thing up there, I came up with the idea. Yeah. I'm like, are we gonna bomb with this?
Yeah. Well, it definitely got people to get up from their seats, and the people that went from standing to sitting down definitely came out.
Yeah, it was the curious factor,
right?
Because they've just seen pictures like it, on your bass drum,
Right.
it shows a picture of the doll.
Yeah.
And people don't think it's real. They think it's just, like a graphic.
Right. It's our logo, and that's it.
Yeah, but it's actually an artifact. It's a thing that you
Yeah.
hold.
And as far as the band's concerned, it's a living object.
Exactly. It is an actual living object, a thing that truly exists as far as the band is concerned. And when you go to our show, you finally see it, and it's really something. I'm glad the response has been all positive about that doll. I was really nervous about putting that thing together. And then, of course, we put the L wire. We were talking about we have the L wires in the case. And
That's a beautiful case. It really turned out really well. And
thanks.
The lighting for the doll is really cool. And unfortunately, as a drummer, I only get to see the back part of it. But it's definitely one of our major props that we have that really does something different than anybody else's show.
Oh yeah, I tend to think so because what do you call it? I mean, we have other dolls in our show.
Yeah.
As props, but they're mostly like throwaway things. In other words, because the doll, the one that we have, we have to be good to that doll. I'm saying the wrong things. It's a very sensitive object to us. It's something that we worship.
It's our idol.
It's our idol.
Yeah.
And then we have other dolls in the show where we just toss around because part of the show, part of the backstory is the spirit of Annie hates other dolls.
Right.
Especially anything that's even closely related as innocent or other popular dolls. That's why we have like that Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, it's a black Raggedy Ann doll. It's like reverse negative kind of Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, and in the story, the Annie spirit commands our singer to get that thing and just toss it around on purpose. And that's why that was another doll we had specially made. So you go on stage and she's just kicking it around, and people seem to like that. It's just another little quirky thing about the influence that our singer has from
Right.
Spirit of the Doll.
Right.
But anyway, that's a little bit of the background story about movies, the doll, how it was made.
Yeah, so, to summarize, like the Evile Annie experience is really influenced from like horror movies and supernatural movies and television and
a lot of people will automatically think, oh, The Exorcist.
right.
And yeah, a little bit of The Exorcist, of course, because when you think possession, you think The Exorcist, right?
Some people, yeah, or Paranormal Activity, or
yeah.
Let's see, what's and then like this year they came out with a bunch of like The Exorcism and Emily Rose, or
oh yeah. And then there's a sequel, I think.
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But when you normally think about exorcism, you think about this girl or boy with the spirit inside them, and it's a horrible experience.
Yeah.
And they want this thing out of them. They're like, get this thing out of me. I hate this,
Yeah, in fact, there's been a point of controversy. The newest Pope Francis, apparently did an exorcism to like someone.
Oh, great!
So someone was in a wheelchair, and he kind of did a prayer that some people would say, "Hey, isn't that an exorcism?" So they definitely believe that still.
Yeah, and like I said before, all these possessions are supposed possessions. It's a horrible experience for the host, and the host wants this thing out of them. It's like, help me, Father. But in our case, with the Evile Annie, the host of our singer that has this possession inside it, instead of wanting it to leave, it wants it to stay, and it forms a bonding.
Like a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely.
Like Batman or Spider-Man and Venom.
That's good. Absolutely. So it does not want the doll. It does not want the doll to leave. It forms a bonding with this spirit, and next thing you know, the host, which is the singer, cannot live without it. And it's almost like the doll will feed upon that and find someone that is a little lost.
Yeah. So that reminds me of one of my favorite movies about possession, the original Evil Dead.
Oh yes,
where
Sam Raimi.
The Sam Raimi's Evil Dead,
Yes.
where Ash's girlfriend is possessed by this evil that you can't see, but when it takes over, it decays. You know, in Evil Dead 2, you see like it decays his arm and stuff, and
Yes.
that possession takes him over. It becomes a completely different entity, which was kind of my influence in how I did the makeup for our Ophelia this time around.
Yes.
Is kind of poisonous. Which reminds me that yesterday I saw Oz the Great and Powerful finally.
Oh,
The Sam Raimi Disney Oz,
Yes.
the sequel to Wizard of Oz. And if anyone's a fan of Sam Raimi or knows of his history, I'll tell you the plot is it's Army of Darkness
yes.
done in Oz. The entire plot. It's like Doofy guy comes from, another world to these people that aren't really that sophisticated and uses the type of magic that he has, like gunpowder, and they even have a freaking montage sequence that was almost identical to Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
And beats this the smaller army beats the supernatural army in the end. And I kind of went, wow, how did Disney not go, hey, isn't Sam Raimi cribbing his own movie?
Well, I was going to ask you, like that's the latest Sam Raimi movie, right?
Right.
Does he still incorporate crazy camera angles and positions?
He definitely did it in this movie. I mean, I see his influence in some of the movies, but in a lot of ways, I've been a Sam Raimi fan, from a really young age, and always loved that. Everything seems so innovative because he didn't have the cash to do like the Steadicam or whatever, so he came with some really cool things, and he overused the like zoom in factor, or like you were saying with objects coming like almost to the camera. Now, Sam Raimi definitely was taking 2D objects and making them three-dimensional. Now he got full reign on three-dimensional objects, and in a lot of ways he overuses it to the point to where I'm going, I know that shot. That was the same shot from Spider-Man 2 or the first Evil Dead or Darkman or name any other Sam Raimi horror action film. So I was kind of disappointed that it almost seems like since Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi has kind of like gone, okay, I'm done. I don't need to come up with anything new. They're paying me for what I'm doing. Give me the paycheck. Thank you very much.
That reminds me. I'm not sure if you remember this, but because you mentioned Darkman,
Yeah.
there's a scene at the end where I guess the bad guy, they're in this high-rise construction building, right?
Right. And the bad guy was Durant.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember from
Well,
that.
I'm talking about the business guy.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in there where he's got like this rivet gun, and he's shooting rivets at Liam Neeson, the Darkman.
Right.
And there's a scene there where he shoots a rivet, and then it's almost like the camera is inside the rivet. You
Right,
see
right.
The
POV.
Yeah, the point of view of the rivet
Yeah.
going at them.
Yeah.
And that was something really
Yeah.
I did not expect. And was any of that in this Oz?
Yeah. The POV thing has been a Sam Raimi like staple in a lot of his movies. So, like that if you go back to Evil Dead, you were in the POV of the spirit that was possessing people. If you think about it, it was like you see it going through the woods, and you saw how the fog kind of dissipates, and it would go like at a high speed.
I mean, and then I noticed he uses a lot of those POVs on those Evil Dead, but did they ever actually show what it looks like? Is it supposed to be like, wasn't it a black ball, or was it a...
Well, I don't think any of the Evil Dead, I haven't seen the newest Evil Dead, but they never really showed the entity. It was the every once in a while you'd see an object get possessed, and then it would turn into kind of a zombie looking thing, and then it would do the I'll swallow your soul kind of thing, and nothing more. But yeah, definitely this latest movie was like I couldn't figure out who the audience was. It was a Disney movie, and it was definitely, I would say, too scary for little kids, and kind of campy for fans of Wizard of Oz. So I was somewhat disappointed. I was glad I didn't really go all the way and watching. There's some really great visuals and stuff, but I honestly think that James Franco didn't really do the job of Oscar the Wizard, as opposed to what they originally wanted. They wanted Robert Downey Jr. to play that part, and I think he would have had the charm.
Yeah, what's the name of the guy, the main actor?
James Franco.
James Franco. Now, this movie was rated PG.
Yeah.
You don't think it was rated PG?
Well, I think there was enough jumpy. I mean, the freaking flying monkeys were scarier than I ever saw them. When you were a kid and you watched the original Wizard of Oz, those flying monkeys, no matter how old they are, they were kind of creepy, but not scary. These CGI flying monkeys were scary.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course, they were all CGI though, right?
Yeah.
They weren't just a bunch of guys in some.
Yeah, not in suits or anything like that.
Suits.
And then that reminds me of the CGI thing. They had this one doll that kind of they called her China doll. That was a porcelain doll. It was really cute, kind of sweet, innocent. That became kind of a focus towards the middle of the movie. That reminded me of our Annie. But the thing I thought was great about it was animated. It looked beautiful. You thought it was a real porcelain doll that was walking and talking and doing everything. And the lighting for the doll looked great. Now, there was also another monkey called Finley that was played by Zach Braff that was like the worst CGI I've ever seen. It was cartoony. He was comic relief. He was kind of like the Jar Jar Binks of this freaking movie. Yeah.
I sometimes when you see movies where they have comic relief.
Well, they have to because.
But it's so obvious.
They have to get both audiences. They have to get the little kids and they have to get the adults. And obviously, that's kind of what I think George Lucas tried to do with Phantom Menace was like, his thing. He used to have a formula.
It's the cute factor.
Yeah. Well, he had a formula of keeping everyone's interest, especially, an 8-year-old.
Yeah, that's when I pressed fast forward on the DVD.
Well, I mean, when you were a kid, did you grow up on Star Wars?
Yes.
Okay, so
everything was I had all the figures, the costumes, the lightsabers.
So I watched that movie a bunch of times, and I remember I used to always fast forward through the exposition and only watch the action scenes. Like the first Star Wars, you usually would watch the first couple of scenes with the speeder and the whole thing with Tatooine.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting, but then when it went to the Death Star portion, I'd fast forward it. It would be so boring of them walking around, getting stuck in the trash compactor, seeing that little alien, and then go straight to the trench part. That was like, the whole movie really was that the freaking dogfight and then the trench at the end. Okay. And then I think the real reason why I liked Empire Strikes Back was they did that battle in the beginning.
The Hoth?
Yeah, the Hoth battle, with the Snow Walkers and everything. And then, they had exposition when he went to Dagobah and met Yoda. It was kind of interesting that, okay, here's Yoda. Here's that little scary part where Luke Skywalker is fighting himself as Darth Vader. And that really weird expositional kind of thing. But then you had this really cool battle at the end, right? Which was just a one-on-one Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. And then, of course, spoilers, you heard the Luke, I am your father speech.
And I just found out that the whole scene on Hoth, that whole scene where the Empire attacks some of those AT-ATs.
Yeah.
Well, there was a whole huge portion of that scene that they actually cut out with the Wampas.
Right.
Because it was supposed to be at the same time all these Wampas were supposed to be attacking the base, and they went through a wall.
Yeah.
And then it was supposed to be a bunch of them, and they had this big battle with the Wampas.
Yeah, I saw it. There was one image of a stormtrooper in the battle suit that was that was getting killed by a Wampa, and I was like, oh, if only I saw that. That would have been awesome.
Well, what happens was the rebels, they trap a Wampa in a certain area, and then they put a little tag on there saying Wampa. And then what happens is C-3PO goes over there while the snowtroopers are coming, and he takes off the sticker that says Wampa inside. So the snowtroopers goes up to the door, opens it, and then the Wampa, this fake arm, goes out there and grabs one of the doors. I actually saw the video.
Oh, wow.
And it looks horrible. It looks, and now I see why they're deleted scenes.
Right.
You know, and then there's a scene where Luke Skywalker, he grabs his big laser turret, and he's firing away, and it's just tearing these Wampas apart. But they said the effects when it hit the Wampas looked really bad, and it was just bad suits. And I saw some of the images, and you say to yourself, it's a good thing they cut these scenes out.
Well, they should have stopped themselves from doing that Star Wars holiday theme.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. All it is just a bunch of people singing.
Yeah, well, it's that whole Wookiee holiday or whatever.
Yeah, I just recently saw that. I saw it when it came out.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember the coolest thing I remember from that as a kid was you finally saw Boba Fett. And it was like he just kind of turned for a second and it was like, here's the great Boba Fett. Like, who is that? That guy is cool. And that toy came out, and I remember getting it, and I was one of the first few kids that had that toy that had the rocket that actually fired from his back. Before they
it was like a spring-loaded thing.
Before all of a sudden, parents were like, "Yo, shoot your eye out," and they,
the children will choke on it.
They glued it. Which reminded me of another thing. Is I used to have a bunch of Transformers that actually shot all that stuff because I used to get the original Japanese Transformers.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that the Wampa scene. You did know about that.
Yeah. I knew about that. I never saw images until someone released a bunch of images from that, and I was like, "Oh, that's so great."
Oh, wait till you see when that arm comes out, and the snowtrooper's like, "Ah!" It just grabs him. And there's a lot of things I disagree with what George Lucas did. But that I was on board with. Oh my God, it looked just really bad.
Well, George Lucas didn't direct. That was Irving Kershner.
Well, he was the producer.
He was a producer,
He was putting up the money.
The thing I know about George Lucas is what he really wanted to do is have someone else shoot everything, and he just loved editing. That was his favorite thing.
And, speaking of that holiday special.
Yeah.
I mean, Harrison Ford was in that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he was in that, and they show him and Chewbacca in the Millennium Falcon, right?
Right.
But it's not the same set piece Millennium Falcon as the movie. Instead, it looks like this cheesy little room with fake-looking cardboard switches in the back. And I saw him like, that's not the Millennium Falcon. What happened to the budget? And then, even back then when I was a kid, I'm like, there's something wrong with this thing. I mean, even the cinematography was like just totally made for TV. The budget was not there. And it was just... It wasn't even for preteens.
Yeah, I wonder what the ratings were. I wonder if they, because you saw it, I saw it, so there had to have been a bunch of kids that tuned into it, and were we all disappointed? I don't remember. I still think it was like, it's so cool, it's Star Wars. I don't care if it's crap.
Exactly, because you longed for anything that's Star Wars. And
well, I remember when they had freaking Mark Hamill host the Muppet Show. That was like one of the best Muppet shows ever because you had Luke Skywalker and Pigs in Space. That was a great episode.
And I was one of those kids where I thought the coolest outfits were the Stormtroopers.
Right.
And then I was so wide-eyed every time I would hear one of the Stormtroopers talking. Oh, that's so cool! So I wanted that outfit. So I'm watching this holiday special and there's Stormtroopers and they never talked. I'm like, I want them to talk. I was more interested on the whole aspect of the Stormtroopers than the main characters. Instead of those stupid Wookiees, and then they would have some Aretha Franklin singing or something like that. What does this have to do with Star Wars? But anyway, going off the subject.
Yeah. There's a rant that's going to get cut.
I know. Look what happens when you get us started.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back, the movies, the main influence of Annie is more.
Now, how is the Tron influence? Because we really don't have any real electronic music that's Tron
it's the
based.
The visual Trons. The visual.
We don't run around data discs in our back or.
No, the L wire.
Yeah, L wire. We don't wear L wire, so we don't look like that.
It's the whole L wire thing.
Right.
The whole L wire of the Tron.
Yeah, the outlines, but we don't. We definitely need to invest in more L wire if we really want to get the Tron thing across there.
Well, it's on our the props.
Right.
And,
it's on my bass drum. It's on your your bass rig. It's on the keyboards.
Yeah.
It's on our staffs.
Yeah, I became obsessed with Evile. I'll put it on anything. I'll put it on my toilet if I have to. All right.
Speaking of which, speaking of Elwire, there's some pictures that I saw recently of someone that had a bass with some lighting on it.
Oh, the big copycat. Okay, what can I do to secure that right? All right. Anyway,
All right, man.
That's it. That's it for that.
Yeah, I think we kind of lost it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
It's still good to have conversations.
Remember, Facebook. Type in on the search mode Evile and EVILEANNIE. You can't miss it. Just look for the creepy doll, click it in, and you'll see it, and do the whole like.
And listen to our music on Reverb Nation.
Yep. And we'll see you later.
All right. Talk to you guys.